Today on the Matt Walsh Show, schools have become far more violent, unruly, and chaotic over the past decade, but the system has found ways to cook the stats and hide how bad it's actually gotten. We will expose that plot today. Also, Biden and Trump will debate, except they have all kinds of rules put in place to protect our senile president from embarrassing himself. And a video goes viral of a woman bragging about all the household chores she refuses to do. Many women are unfortunately cheering her on. We'll talk about all that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. Can your savings weather another economic storm? Think about what you've put away for the future. Inflation can render cash worthless, and real estate can crash as it did in 2008. During times of economic uncertainty and market volatility, investors tend to flock to gold as a safe haven asset. Its value tends to increase during turbulent times, providing a buffer against market downturns. This is why people are flocking to gold now and why Birch Gold is busier than ever. Birch Gold understands that navigating financial decisions can be daunting. That's why their dedicated in-house IRA department is there to guide you every step of the way. Birch Gold is committed to addressing your questions and concerns promptly. Their team is always ready to provide answers and clarity, whether it's about fees, taxes on rollovers, or the timing of the process. They're here to ensure that you feel valued and well-informed. Text Walsh to 989898 to talk to one of Birch Gold's experts and claim your free info kit on gold. You'll learn how to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. The best part is, it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Just text Walsh to 989898. That's Walsh to 989898. There's an inconvenient paradox that at one point or another, every social justice scholar has to wrestle with, and that paradox is this. Even as the entire country forcibly implements every single one of their wish list items, no matter how extreme or untethered from reality they may be, the result is that people's lives get objectively worse. And I'm not just talking about a little worse. Pretty much everyone's life measurably gets a lot worse. If you have a child in public school system, you know that students have suffered in particular from this situation, but you may not realize how stark the decline has been because no one's really reported on these specific numbers. So a couple of years ago, the Department of Education took a look at serious incidents occurring in public schools in the years 2009 through 2010, the 2009-2010 school year. They then compared that data with the number of serious incidents that occurred a decade later in the 2019 to 2020 school year, which is mostly pre-pandemic. And this is what's known in the statistics biz as a longitudinal analysis. And if there's one thing leftists hate, it's longitudinal analysis, because you're not supposed to think about the past, because if you do that, you might realize that it was a lot better than the current progressive experiment that we're all living through. And as the Department of Education found, that's especially true in schools, because the percentage of public schools reporting widespread disorder in the classroom, at least once per week, increased by more than 60% from 2009 to 2019. So I'll say that again. Rates of widespread disorder in the classroom jumped by more than 60% in just a decade. Meanwhile, the percentage of public schools reporting students' verbal abuse of teachers, at least once per week, as well as cyberbullying, increased by more than 100%. Racial and ethnic tensions among students increased by more than 30%. How could that be? I mean, this was the era of Barack Obama and teachable moments. This was the era that we learned that gender is a supposedly social construct. This was the era that pride parades became mandatory in every major city in the country. It was also, you might remember, the era that every newspaper and media outlet in the country began harping about police brutality. This was the decade of Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner, Tamir Rice and Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, and so on. BLM and racial tolerance were all on the upswing during this decade. Could all of this left-wing social engineering have backfired? Could it be the reason that schools were now far more chaotic and dangerous than ever? Confronted with this problem, school administrators had two choices. They could have admitted that the progressive experiment was failing and started disciplining students and restoring order without regard to skin color or ethnicity or anything like that. Or they could come up with a way to cook the statistics. In the end, of course, they decided on the latter option, and the hysteria of the so-called racial reckoning post-George Floyd gave them their opening. As the BLM moral panic overtook the world back in 2020, The idea of quote-unquote restorative practices or restorative justice took hold in schools all over the country. A new report from the parental rights group Parents Defending Education found that more than 18,000 schools across more than 500 school districts now have these quote-unquote restorative policies in place. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. In late 2020, school officials trumpeted this approach as a major breakthrough. For example, here's how the Coachella Valley Unified School District in California framed the arrival of restorative justice. Watch.
The Coachella Valley Unified School District is turning to restorative justice programs, a different approach when it comes to disciplinary policies for students. And schools have reported significant improvements in suspension rates and the school climate. And News Channel 3's Madison Weil has more on that program and why administrators say it's working.
For decades, East Valley communities have experienced higher rates of poverty and lower rates of high school graduation. A new case study takes a look at why this is and offers up a simple solution: restorative justice programs in the classroom.
Restorative justice in schools is really about a culture shift away from zero tolerance.
The program, led by a group called Alianza Coachella Valley, they explain that restorative justice programs change the way students are disciplined in school. Instead of automatically disciplining a student, teachers are trained to open up a conversation first, trying to instead communicate and identify the underlying challenges a student might be facing at home.
We no longer send kids to detention. We don't use the D word any longer.
Instead of a suspension, there's a conversation.
We train the teachers. They're understanding now to question the child.
The new case study found that schools using restorative justice experienced reduced suspension rates, improved class participation, and better relationships between students, parents, and district staff.
So in the name of restorative justice, they stopped detentions and suspensions in this school district, which covers more than a dozen schools across 1,200 square miles. And what do you know? The number of suspensions went down. They stopped suspending people, and therefore there were fewer suspensions. We're meant to believe this is a sign that the new approach is working. But of course, it's not a sign that it's working. It's the opposite. It's the same reason the number of traffic citations in San Francisco has just gone to zero. And it's not because there's some sort of miraculous occurrence and everyone in San Francisco drives perfectly now. It's because the police stopped enforcing traffic laws and shoplifting laws and public urination laws and every other law. Now, as for the other claims about restorative justice, how it's promoted better relationships in the school and so on, well, that's not remotely accurate either, obviously. And we know that because a little over a year after the report I just showed you, the reality of the situation became impossible to ignore. Armed with restorative justice, schools in Coachella Valley became much more violent. Watch.
This school year has been a difficult one already on some local campuses. We've reported on the alarming fights breaking out at Desert Hot Springs High School during the first semester.
Now we're looking into the fights at Coachella Valley High School and what teachers say are systemic issues within CVUSD. As morning anchor Angela Chin reports, at the heart of this is a concerning lack of response from the school board and the superintendent.
A warning on this: we are showing videos of school fights and some viewers may be disturbed by the violence.
A barrage of blows down to the bone. Reports of broken noses, kids being carried off by ambulance. These students pummel each other, pulled away only when the security guards drag them off. These brutal fights exploded across Coachella Valley High School at the beginning of this year, according to teachers we spoke with. Staff here, burnt out just months in, spoke to us. They did not want to show their faces for fear of retaliation, saying they felt abandoned by administration.
This is why you have to be very careful whenever anyone cites statistics about crime or violence or any other kind of dysfunction, because they'll say that it's going down and everything is getting better. Meanwhile, you can go outside and talk to anyone and they'll tell you the opposite. That's not what they're observing in their everyday life. And that's because the statistics are extremely easy to manipulate. Stop enforcing the rules, and the statistics will show that there are fewer rule breakers. Eventually, this news report gets around to acknowledging that. They make the observation that the number of suspensions has been plummeting, even as the fights are obviously becoming more common. And then they connect the dots with restorative justice. Watch.
CVUSD has long had a higher incidence of school violence resulting in injury than the other two districts in the Valley. And it's the only Valley district that doesn't have police officers assigned to its campuses, getting rid of them back in 2018. Still, for the violence reported during the first 3 months of this school year at CV High School, the number of suspended kids due to violence this year is the lowest at CVUSD compared to Desert Sands and Palm Springs Unified. Some teachers accuse CVUSD of trying to make itself look better on paper by keeping suspension rates down. It could explain why school violence with injury is its highest suspension category compared to Desert Sands and Palm Springs, which both have fights without injury as their highest. Either CVUSD has very few fights without injuries, or CVUSD chooses to suspend only in the most serious of cases. Another reason for recent low suspension rates: in late 2020, CVUSD took on the restorative justice approach, meaning instead of using punitive discipline on kids who break the rules, they use counseling guidance and mediation in response. The district has said this approach is working, especially at the middle school level.
So this kind of slow-burning realization has played out all over the country in just the past few years. For example, around last Thanksgiving, a school in Memphis, Trezevant High, promoted its own restorative practices. They're a little more vague than the Coachella School District, and they don't use the term restorative justice. But according to Parents Defending Education, in most cases, the two terms are basically interchangeable. And here's what it means at Trezevant High. Watch.
Hi everybody, it's Teacher here. Memphis Shelby County Schools is trending up. The Student Equity Enrollment and Discipline Department and WKNO would like to spotlight an exceptional school today. Trezevant High School, led by Principal Brent. Principal Brent, your school has done a dynamic job of using restorative practices like being kind to each other and being responsible. Can you tell me what makes your school so great?
First of all, we keep our ears open, our eyes, so we can be able to foster an environment for a learner that can be conducive to all our scholars. We make sure that our scholars take the high quality education courses and make sure they also have the opportunity to go to the technical path and be able to exemplify what a true scholar is.
So, yes, restorative practices mean being kind to each other and being responsible. Before we had the social justice terminology of restorative practices, no one ever knew how to be kind or responsible. That's the implication. This is a revolutionary concept. Who needs religion or morality when you have social justice leftism, I guess? Well, not to spoil anything, but it turns out that we still need religion and morality because restorative practices have been a disaster at this school. In just the past month, a student and a teacher got into a fight on camera, and a student allegedly popped off some shots on school grounds as well. Watch.
A video that many of you guys have seen on social media of a student and a teacher fighting happened here at Trezevant High School. I spoke to someone who was inside during the fight, and they tell me they believe the teacher is in the wrong.
He pushed him, and he wasn't supposed to get that aggressive with the student.
This student does not feel comfortable identifying himself because he is currently suspended from Trezevant High School for being in the fight. It happened on Tuesday afternoon in the cafeteria. You can see here the student face-to-face with the teacher wearing a purple shirt. That's when the teacher pushes the student back. The student follows with punches.
If the teacher put hands on him first, then of course the student is gonna react. Ain't no student gonna let anybody put their hands on them, whether they're an adult or another child.
Ladera Young believes this teacher should face discipline, but another parent disagrees, saying the teacher had no choice but to defend himself.
He allowed that to play off. The other students in the classroom would figured out that they can do the same. And the student triggered a fight off if you look at the video.
Also tonight, a mother and son are charged after the son fired shots on the grounds of Trezevant High School. On March 22nd, officers responded to a shooting call in the high school after a student fired a shot at two victims. Police say he had gotten into a fight at school earlier that same day. His mother, Deborah Rawls, took him out of school, but the son came back to school and waited for the two victims to be dismissed before he shot at them. After this, the mother was seen leaving their car and running toward her son, but they were then picked up by a car and drove away. She never contacted MPD about what happened.
So anyone looking at the school knows that restorative practices aren't the solution to this chaos. Being kind isn't working out. These students and the parents and teachers apparently don't need to be told how wonderful they are. They're completely out of control. And so are the students in the majority black Hazelwood School District in Missouri. During the BLM insanity, Hazelwood put out a statement vowing to promote restorative justice practices across our organization, but in particular to reduce disparities around student discipline. So they're all in on the whole ideology and restorative justice and everything else. How's that working out? What's happened after years of efforts to reduce disparities and restore justice, whatever that is supposed to mean exactly? Well, this was the scene a couple of blocks away from school back in March. Watch.
Let me do that. Look. You're in,
So that's a video you've probably seen, and the white girl who was beaten suffered brain bleeding and a skull fracture. She spent a month in the hospital, followed by rehab. In response to this footage, Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey said that he wanted the attacker to be charged as an adult. He didn't want restorative justice. He wanted actual justice. He also said he was investigating possible violations of human rights laws. He wrote, quote, "I'm launching an investigation into Hazelwood School District after a student was senselessly assaulted by another student in broad daylight. The entire community deserves answers on how Hazelwood's radical DEI programs resulted in such despicable safety failures that resulted in a student fighting for her life." Several of those DEI policies were unearthed by Libs of TikTok on her Twitter feed, which you can go see. Bailey also wrote that, quote, "The absence of SROs, school resource officers, on the scene is directly attributable to Hazelwood's insistence on prioritizing race-based policies over basic student safety." So what did the Hazelwood School District do in response? You already know the answer to that question. They accused the Attorney General, of course, of racism. The school district's lawyer said that Bailey has, quote, "obvious racial bias against majority-minority school districts." The lawyer also claimed that the school resource officers, quote, "would not have prevented a fight from occurring off school property and outside of the school day." And then they filed an ethics complaint against the Attorney General. So basically, they're absolving themselves completely. They have shown no signs whatsoever that they intend to revisit their commitment to restorative justice. Of course, what's happening in Missouri and across the country is a multifaceted problem. Restorative justice isn't helping, but it's obviously not the sole cause of all this chaos in schools. It starts with terrible parenting, which is maybe the single greatest predictor of dysfunction that exists in the world. What restorative justice does is validate and absolve this dysfunction and promote it, encourage it, facilitate it. Instead of making any real effort to correct it, the point is to enable it, while also hiding it from public view as much as possible. We see the same approach to restorative justice in the criminal justice system, where the stakes are higher and the results predictably are even worse. In the nation's capital, restorative justice means that you can fire 26 rounds from an AR-15 at a moving vehicle on camera, on multiple cameras, and get out of jail immediately. It means you can commit arson and attack police officers with impunity. Where well-adjusted people see an obvious problem here, the promoters of restorative justice see a success story. The beatings will continue until the restorative justice improves. That's their approach. And in school districts all over the country, children are now living with the consequences. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. If you owe back taxes or still have unfiled returns, that can really weigh on your mind, especially when the IRS is becoming more determined than ever. The Chief Data Analytics Officer revealed that the IRS is focused on an enforcement project with an average return on investment of about $6 for every $1 spent. They're targeting individuals and businesses that currently owe back taxes or haven't yet filed their returns. Tax Network USA, the nation's leading tax relief firm, knows the tax code and will fight for you. With a record of negotiating over $1 billion in tax relief for their clients, their team is knowledgeable in handling any type of tax issue. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help you. Even if you don't have all your personal or business records over the years, they can get you filed up to date. Facing the IRS without a professional is not a smart move. Contact Tax Network USA for the best strategic advice to help reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. Call today at 1-800-245-6000 or visit their website at tnusa.com/Walsh. They'll give you a free private consultation on how you can settle your tax debt today. That's tnusa.com/Walsh. It's been just over a week since Responsible Man's launch, and the response has been incredible. Thousands of you have voted yes and sign up for our new Emerson Daily Multivitamin Responsible Man, the newest Daily Wire venture company. We all know men's health products suck. They're either too woke, too bro, or were made for your grandpa. That's where the Emerson Multivitamin comes in. Designed with you in mind and from a company that supports your values, the Emerson Multivitamin is made up of 33 key premium ingredients that help fill nutrient gaps to support your immune system, maintain energy production, sharpen brain cognition, and support the health of your heart and muscles. The Emerson Multivitamin is premium, comes in a black tin with dark green pills that are easy to take and have a mint flavor. There's really no excuse not to give your body a vitamin that's packed full of ingredients that helps it to be its best. The Responsible Man launch sale is ending this week. Save 30% at responsibleman.com. As a man, you have people relying on you, and the world conspires to see you fail. With so much chaos and uncertainty, it's crucial to take charge of your life and responsibilities. Take charge by visiting responsibleman.com and save 30%. That's responsibleman.com and save 30% today. Okay, so yesterday morning, Joe Biden issued a debate challenge, a bold debate challenge to Donald Trump. Let's watch that.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Make my day, Donald. So if you're keeping track at home, that was 5 cuts. 5 cuts in a 14-second video. And just to do the math on that, that's like 1 cut every 3 seconds, thereabouts. So Joe Biden could not make it more than 3 seconds without having to cut. And yeah, I know they try to dress it up, with the music in the background. They try to dress it up like it was an intentional stylistic choice, because all the kids are making videos like this these days. But we know better. We know that they did that. Those lines he had to probably redo 7 or 8 times each. And but he put that out. And anyway, shortly after the video, it was announced that there would be 2 debates, with the first one at the end of June 27th, I think, on CNN. You see the timing there. So Biden issues this bold challenge, and then like an hour later, we find out that there's going to be a debate anyway. There's going to be 2 debates. So what that means, obviously, is that the debate, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to see here, the debate had already been agreed to. Trump and Biden had already agreed to this debate behind the scenes, and then Biden goes on camera and says, "Hey, why don't you come debate me, you coward?" To challenge him, the thing they already set up. So that's not only a lame PR move, but it also shows the level of coordination between the media and the Biden campaign. So no big surprise there. And the same media that is coordinating this PR stunt for Biden is also they're going to be the ones that are moderating this debate. And there are some ground rules to these debates. The communications director for the Biden campaign was on CNN later that day to talk about the rules and what their demands are. And they have many demands, actually. Let's watch.
So you say no live audience. You want it in a television studio without an audience. Does that mean if the Trump campaign insists on an audience, no deal?
Listen, I think the Trump campaign made their proposal very clear when Donald Trump said he'd be willing to debate anytime, anywhere, any place. And so what we want and what we have laid out is that we want to do this sooner rather than later. We should do it in June, after his criminal trial is likely to have concluded and after the president returns from the G7 summit. It should be, yes, in studio with no audience so that the candidates can clearly articulate their vision for the country.
Is an audience a deal breaker? Is an audience a deal breaker for you?
Listen, it's Donald Trump who said he would do this anytime, anywhere, any place. So I don't think that they should have any problems with what we have proposed. He's the one who said he's ready to go. So we should be set to go once we have proposals in from networks. We're excited to debate. The question is, will Donald Trump accept it?
I just issued a proposal right here. We'll do it right here on CNN News Central. Happy to oblige. No third party candidate. What if RFK is at 15%, Robert Kennedy Jr. at 15% in September? You still don't think he should be on the stage?
No, listen, the reality here is that there are 2 candidates with a pathway to 270 electoral votes. That's President Joe Biden and that's Donald Trump. And the American people deserve to hear from them because that is the reality that we're facing. That is the choice in this election. So we should have a debate between the 2 candidates on the issues. Joe Biden will articulate his historic record of accomplishment, his vision for the future, and Donald Trump will go out here and try to explain why he's bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade, why he's trying to rebuild an economy that only works for rich people like himself, why he's trying to rule as a dictator on day one. That's the debate that the American people deserve to see in prime time, and that's what we're proposing.
Okay, so no audience, no RFK Jr. Also, they want strict time limits, and they want the mics to be cut off once a candidate's time limit is up. And to me, that rule is the real problem. The live audience doesn't really matter. I actually agree with that. I prefer when there's no audience. Now, I know why the Biden campaign wants an empty room. It's not for the same reasons that I do as a viewer. They want it because they don't want to risk Biden getting booed. They also don't want anything distracting Biden, who, they're already going to have him hopped up on who knows what in order to get through this thing. And so they don't want anything to distract. So they just want to keep things like as toned down as possible so they can get Grandpa through this thing and then get him to his very late bedtime. But I think audiences do detract from the debate. I don't. When I watch a debate, I don't want to hear the trained seals in the audience clapping. I just don't. It's a waste of time. I don't care. It's like we're watching to hear what these people have to say because they want to run the country. And I don't care about the audience's feeling about it. It's irrelevant. So it's all just a sort of a waste of time. So as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. Not having RFK Jr., I can see the argument for that. He's not going to win. He's not even on the ballot in most states. We should hear from the candidates who actually have a chance to win. So I can see the argument there. But the mic thing is the real problem to me. And this is not how actual debates work between human beings in real life. It's just, this is not a debate. It's not, okay, I'm going to talk for a minute, and then you go for a minute, and then I'll go for 30 seconds, and you'll go for 30 seconds. And once you get to, if you have 60 seconds, once you get to 61 seconds, it stops right there. You can't even finish your thought. That's not a debate. That's a talking points contest. I give my talking points, you give your talking points, and then I give mine, and then you give yours. A debate should be a debate. As I've always argued for, just let them stand in the room with each other and debate. Let them stand there and talk to each other. The only thing the moderator needs to do is say, all right, here's the topic. You've got 30 minutes. Go ahead. And maybe deciding who gets to start the conversation, and then that will change. So this is the first topic. Trump goes first. Next topic, Biden goes first. But then you don't need to jump in the middle of it. Just let them talk. That's how a debate actually works. And of course, we know that that Biden would never agree to that. Now, Trump would agree to that. I think he would quite happily agree to a debate like that. Joe Biden never would. And the fact that they've stacked the deck in this way, cutting the mics off, no audience, having it on CNN, of course, is the main way they stack the deck. There are some conservatives making the argument that Trump should not even agree to this because he's walking into what's supposed to be a trap. And I can see that argument too, but I think that even with the deck stacked against him, there's only so much they can do on the Biden campaign to paper over the fact that their guy is a vegetable. There's only so much they can do. And so it's still the advantage, no matter what they do, no matter what rules they put in place. They can put a rule in place that you have a time limit of 20 seconds for each answer. And still the advantage goes to Trump because Joe Biden's a vegetable. And we also know that, Biden has basically two gears that he's capable of. And the first gear is the one that he's usually in, which is just him wandering around and babbling nonsensically. They don't want that gear for him with this. The only other gear that he has is angry and shouting. And that's kind of what we saw with the State of the Union address. And there were plenty of people that were impressed with the State of the Union address because he actually made it through the whole thing without falling over or falling asleep or, pooping his pants or whatever, as far as we know. But that's because they had him in that gear. He's angry and shouting the entire time. And which means that's the gear he's going to be in for this debate, is we're going to get angry, shouting Biden through the entire thing, which is going to not help his case, I think. That's going to be a spectacle that will work in Trump's favor. All right. I want to mention this absolutely awful story from the New York Post. So here's the story. A 10-year-old Indiana boy killed himself after being bullied relentlessly at school, according to his family, who claimed to have raised the alarm at least 20 times in the last year. Sammy Tausch, a fourth grader at Greenfield Intermediate School, was bullied right up until the night he died by suicide on May 5th. His dad, Sam, said, "I held him in my arms. I did the thing no father should ever have to do, and anytime I closed my eyes, that's all I could see." Sammy's parents, Sam and Nicole, said that they complained to the school roughly 20 times about the bullying that started last year when he was in elementary school. They were making fun of him for his glasses in the beginning, then it went on to make fun of his teeth. It went on for a long time, his dad said. He was beat up on the school bus. The kids broke his glasses and everything. I called the school and I'm like, "What are you doing about this? It's getting worse and worse and worse." The school district superintendent, Dr. Harold Olin, denied any bullying report had ever been submitted by either the parents or the boy. However, he acknowledged that the school's administrators and counselors had regular conversations with the family throughout the year without elaborating because of confidentiality rules. So that's a little bit hard to believe. The school's saying that there was no bullying reported, and yet you're also saying that the family had regular conversations with the counselors. Like, well, what are they talking about? If they're having regular conversations, it's almost certainly about that. What else would they be talking about? The boy's family insists that the fears have been made clear. They knew this was going on. He said. And so the parents are obviously distraught. Distraught doesn't even... words fail to capture what a parent of a child who commits suicide must be experiencing, especially at that age. It's just unthinkable. I can't even, you can't begin to wrap your mind around it. So a couple things here. And because it's the internet, anything that happens becomes fodder for debate, and people have opinions and stuff like that. And teams, whatever the event is, like you have teams assemble, and I'm on this team, I'm on that team. And so that has happened with this story, with some of the commentary on it. And you've got some people that are sort of blaming the parents, saying it's the parents' fault. You've got other people that are blaming the school. I'm going to say that I think that you can't really blame either. Or at least if there is one party mainly to blame for this, there's no way for us to know who that is. We probably will never know. But it's quite possible that there's really no one specifically to blame. Now, from the school's perspective, like if they were negligent, if they made no attempt to address the problem, if they just ignored the concerns, well, then yes, then they deserve a significant amount of blame. But it's quite possible that the school may have heard these complaints and taken them seriously and done everything they could, but there's only so much they can do. When a child is in school and has been singled out as sort of a pariah for whatever random reason that this happens to them, and it is sort of random, that the bullies in the school just kind of hone in on one kid and decide that he's going to be the target. They've locked in on him. And when that happens, like there's just only so much the school can do. They should try to do what they can, but there's only so much. And the problem is that it's a catch-22, because if they don't do anything, if they don't address it, if they don't try to discipline the bullies, then it will continue. But if they do, well, then you risk making the kid even more of a target. Because now the kid's going and hiding behind the teachers and all the rest of it. So I don't know the details. I don't think anybody does outside of those directly involved, but it's quite possible that the school did everything they could reasonably do and it wasn't enough. And then on the parents' end of it, there's only so much a parent can do when you're sending your kid into school every day. When your kid's going into this environment, you can talk to your child after school. You can reach out to the school administrators. You can try to reach out to the parents of the kids who are tormenting your child. You can do all of that, but you can't go to school with him and walk with him from class to class and shield him physically from the bullying. And even if you could do that, you would probably only make it worse. So they could have easily done all of those things, and it wasn't enough. When he's still going to school. Like, ultimately, the only real answer in a situation like this is to get your kid out of the school. And I would say that, now, I know it's easier said than done, and these parents may have been in a position where they just couldn't do that. Maybe they were working towards doing that. But they just couldn't do it right then and there. If you rely on, if you're a dual income house and you rely on both incomes to keep a roof over your head, and there's no private schools in the area that you can afford, and there's no other school you can send them to where there's any reason to think it'll be any better, well, then homeschooling is the other option. And I'm a big advocate of homeschooling. I think it's the best thing for every kid if you can do it. But that means you have to go down to a one-income house because someone's got to stay home and do the homeschooling. And you might not be able to do that. Even as much of an advocate of homeschooling I am, I realize that it's not something that a family can just do at the drop of a hat. But that is ultimately the answer. And, the fact is that if you are a parent and your child becomes a target to this extent, that's what you have to do. You have to get the kid out. We are way past, this is a good opportunity for my child to learn how to deal with this sort of pressure, and they're going to have to deal with this in the real world. And no. No, I'll tell you something. No child is equipped to deal with this. No child is. And the reason is, and we talked about this I was on Tim Pool's show last night. We talked about this a little bit, and I've talked about this many times. This phenomenon of peer orientation, the peer culture, and this is what makes it so that it's no child can really deal with it. And it's not, you might hear from boomers sometimes, and people that went to school decades and decades ago, and it's, we had bullies all the time, and we didn't make as much of a big a deal out of it. Yeah, but it's not the same. It's different now. And it's different because of the just all-encompassing, pervasive peer culture that these kids are in. They go into the school environment and they're in a culture now that is run by the peers, like the inmates are running the asylum. That's the way it works in every public school in the country. And it's like Lord of the Flies, in every school, essentially, is how it goes. And they decide what the culture is, what the environment is. And so a child who has been rejected in that culture, and by his peer culture, this is an experience of total, from his perspective, from the child's perspective, this is an experience of total social rejection. Now, the fact that we all know that if you're a kid, you're going to grow up and you're going to graduate school, and before you know it, you'll be graduating school, and none of this will matter anymore. And all the kids who are bullies, you're not going to care about their opinions anymore. And a lot of them will go on to be total failures in life and all the rest of it, and it just won't matter. Now, we know that from our adult perspective looking back, but the kids don't see it that way. They don't have the capability to look that far into the future. All they see is what's around them. And they see total social alienation, total social rejection. And then to make matters worse, and this is the thing that really separates kids of today from kids in the past, and the reason why, if you went to school 30 years ago, it's just not comparable. So you talking about, well, I dealt with bullying. Yeah, but you actually had it a lot easier. You did. Because we also have social media and the internet now, which just changes everything. And if you didn't grow up with that, if that was not a part of your childhood, then you just simply can't even relate to what the kids today are experiencing, because it's completely changed the world. It's changed what it means to be a child. And when it comes to bullying, what it means is that these kids can never really escape it, because they leave the school environment, but this kind of peer culture follows them because it stays on the internet and social media and the phone and everywhere. So it's like they're walking around now constantly in this sort of fog, which means that alienation and rejection that they're experiencing in school now goes beyond school, because now it bleeds over into the internet and it follows them everywhere. And that's how you end up with children who do horrific and drastic things that they don't understand what they're doing, obviously, but that's how you end up with this. So the only real way to protect your child from that to the greatest extent possible is to keep them out of the school system. And as much as possible, keep them off the internet, keep them away from all of this so that they remain grounded and so that they are looking to you as adults. They're looking to their parents. And the approval and affirmation that they care about the most is what they get from you. That's the solution to this, is to make sure that your kids are looking to you for approval and affirmation. When they start looking to their peers for approval and affirmation, that's when they are now in a very vulnerable state, because their happiness and their sense of self is now depending on these other kids who are just as confused as they are. And they have become now untethered, and anything could happen then. I mean, once that happens, once your kid says, I don't care about your approval and affirmation anymore, mom and dad. I only care about what these people say. Once that happens, your kid can become anything. Anything can happen then. So you say as a parent, oh, well, my kid would never do that. My kid would never become that sort of person. Anything could happen once they no longer look to you for approval and affirmation, because now you have no influence. You know, we talk about control a lot with parenting. We say, well, parents need to control their kids. Well, we know that, but control is not really it. Like, control is a remote control car. You know, you can actually physically decide which way the car goes, right? You have remote control for the remote for the TV, you know, that kind of control. But that doesn't exist for kids. So you can't actually physically control them in that sense. But what you can do is influence them. So as parents, we wield an incredible amount of influence over our children. And most of the time when we say a kid is out of control, it's not that the parents have lost control over him, it's that they've lost influence over him. They have no influence over his actions. And once that happens, again, with a child, especially once they become, once they get to the preteen and teenage years, and you as a parent no longer have any influence over their actions, that's when terrible, terrible things can happen. All right. I want to mention one more thing. Daily Wire has this report. 2 human stars of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes say that they're on the side of the animals due to the current state of the planet. They were being interviewed in promoting this film, and they made these comments. Let's watch that.
I'm fully Team Ape.
Listen, obviously, when I'm playing May, I'm Team Human, but I'm Team Ape. Freya's Team Ape.
Ah, why so?
I mean, look at the planet.
Yeah,
we go.
Look at what the humans have done to the Earth.
Well, yeah. I dislike humans a lot.
Yeah.
There's the odd one that's like, no. I mean, there are times where you see humans come together and you go, oh, isn't this lovely? And then there's times where you go, I absolutely hate us.
Yeah.
So one note here, just casually discussing your disdain for the whole human species is not the kind of thing that a person should feel comfortable doing in general. And the fact that this woman, this rich elitist woman, feels comfortable confessing to her hatred of the human race while promoting a blockbuster film really shows you how far we've fallen as a culture. I mean, it shows you how much the anti-human communists have seized control. Now, is it true that some humans behave atrociously? Sure. I mean, just look at the anti-human communists. That's one example. Look at the fact that Hollywood has gone back to the Planet of the Apes well like 75 times because that's how intellectually and creatively bankrupt they are. Now, yes, by the way, it's an interesting idea for a story, the idea that very smart apes have taken over the planet. And it's an interesting idea. But is it so interesting that we need like 150 hours worth of material on that subject? Is it that interesting? Really? Like, we get it now, don't we? We had the original Planet of the Apes, and then sequels, and then we had a remake of the original Planet of the Apes, and then we had a new sequel trilogy, and now we're continuing with a fourth one from that. Like, don't we? How many different ways can we tell this story? We get it. Yes, apes took over. Humans had to fight them, and okay. But we keep going back to it because, again, the intellectual and creative bankruptcy. But the point is, this is something, creating this movie, that it's something that certain humans have done. It is a sin of certain humans, not all humans. I don't hate all humans because of this movie, only the ones who made it. And as for this idea that humanity is some kind of plague on the planet, first of all, the funny thing is that this is the kind of nonsense you really only hear from left-wing atheists. But left-wing atheists are the ones who are least able to logically make that argument. What I mean is this, if there is no God, then nothing has any value on its own. There is no inherent value to anything. A thing only has value if sentient creatures are there to value it, which means that without humanity, the earth has either no value or at least greatly diminished value. And what makes the earth very valuable is that there are so many highly sentient creatures, humans, around to give it value. That's on the atheist view. So saying get rid of all the humans because it'll be better for the earth, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, who cares about the earth then? Now, if you believe in God, then you can rightly say that the earth would have value even without people because it is God's creation, and God's creative act is what imbues it with value. But that would obviously not lead you to the conclusion that humans shouldn't exist or that we should be anti-human because God made humans too and gave us dominion over the earth. So either way, it really makes no sense to be anti-human or to suggest that the earth would be better off without humans. It makes no sense. And it's driven by pure misanthropic, nihilistic disdain for life itself, which is something that people feel comfortable confessing to even when they're promoting a movie, which is very interesting. Grand Canyon University is a private Christian university located in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. GCU believes that our Creator has endowed us with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They believe in equal opportunities and that the American dream is driven by purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promote your flourishing, which will create a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. Whether you're pursuing a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, Grand Canyon University's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your degree. GCU has over 330 academic programs. As of September 2023, GCU will meet you where you are and provide a path to help you fulfill your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. Find your purpose today at Grand Canyon University, private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. That's gcu.edu. Well, let's be honest. Father's Day gifts are often pathetic, and your dad deserves better. Jeremy's Razors isn't here to play into the hands of woke corporations trying to feminize men. No, Jeremy's Razors is here to give men a tool they actually need. Jeremy's second-generation razors are here, and everything has been upgraded. The Precision 5, it's for the kind of dad who can navigate a road trip using only the position of the Big Dipper and the last known location of McDonald's. Then there's the Sprint 3 for the dad who just wants to get in, get out, and get on with his day. It's quick, it's effective, and best of all, it comes with absolutely zero lectures on social justice. Right now, use the code DAD15 to get 15% off. That's right, upgrade your dad's daily routine with something that's built for men. Head on over to jeremysrazors.com, enter code DAD15, and get your dad a gift that he actually wants. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. A lot of young men are worried about getting married because they're afraid that they'll end up with a bad, selfish woman as a wife. But the good news is that the bad wives generally announce themselves. They're proud of it, and they'll tell you all about it. So take this woman named Paige. Paige is a TikTok influencer, also happens to be married with 4 children. And she's a bad wife and is very eager to alert the public to that fact, including with this video. Watch.
A few weeks ago, I said I don't do my husband's laundry, and a lot of people are saying, whoa, 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 those are small acts of kindness. Why wouldn't you want to do that for your partner? But here's the thing. Small acts of kindness that are mostly domestic labor just add up to work at the end of the day. So here's a list of things that I don't do for my husband. You all know, I don't do his laundry. He can do that himself. I do my laundry, and we do the kids' laundry, but he does his own. I don't cook dinner. He cooks dinner every single night. I do breakfast and lunch for us and our kids. I don't pack him a lunch. If he's hungry, he'll figure out what he's going to eat for lunch the same way that I do. I don't make his doctor's appointments because guess what? He's not making mine. Would it be kind of me to do that? For sure. Is it my job? Absolutely not. I want him to be healthy, but he's a grown-ass man and he can book his own appointments, right? There's a lot of things that I don't do for my husband. I don't schedule his haircuts. I don't pack his clothes for vacation. Right? I don't do those things. I don't buy him new underwear when it's got holes in it. All of those are things that he's a grown man and he can do himself. Can I do small acts of kindness for him? Of course I can. And I do. I see a vinyl that I think he's going to like because he's creating a vinyl collection. I buy it. I'm at the store and I see something that I think he might enjoy eating. I buy it. I find a new non-alcoholic beer that he wants to try out. I buy it. Right? Those are small acts of kindness. Doing his laundry, cooking him dinner, making him lunch, booking his doctor's appointments, all those things, that's domestic labor. Those are chores. Those are not acts of kindness. Do I do them occasionally when he's working a lot? Of course. Do I cook dinner sometimes when he's had a really long day? Of course. But me not doing that does not mean that I don't show him love or kindness. They're different things. It is not my job as a wife, it is not in my job description to do all the domestic labor as small acts of kindness to my partner and receive nothing in return.
Now, the video has gone viral with many women in the comments gushing over how much they respect and admire her for this approach, which is good because it gives single men the chance to go through the comments and cross all of these women off of the list of potential wives in the future. A video like this provides a perfect litmus test. Like, show it to a woman you're dating, and if she nods her head and says, amen, break up immediately. Just cut it off right there. Because there are two major problems with this video, and anyone who endorses it also shares in having these problems. Beginning with the fact that she made the video in the first place. Like, even if I could agree that it's defensible for a wife to flat out refuse to do any of the things she lists, which I don't agree, it would still be a major red flag that you're proud of not doing them. You're taking pride in what you don't do for your husband. You are bragging about all the ways that you don't help him and don't care for him. That alone tells us that your marriage is deeply sick and will not survive for much longer unless you change dramatically and quickly. There's really no reason why you needed to tell the world who does the laundry in your house. Nobody asked for that information, and if they did ask for it, you could just ignore them. But you're proud of not doing the laundry, proud of the fact that apparently when you do a load of laundry for yourself and the kids, you specifically separate his clothes and refuse to throw them in the washer with the other clothes. It takes actual effort to not do the laundry for one person in the house. That's how dedicated you are to not helping your husband. Now, it should be easy to see the problem here. Like, what if your husband made a condescending video where he smugly boasted about all the stuff he doesn't do for you because you're a grown woman and you can do it yourself? How would that make you feel? How would you be happy that your husband takes pride in refusing to help you? Would you like the fact that he's announcing this to the entire world? I bet you wouldn't. I bet you expect him to be more respectful towards you and your marriage. And I bet that's not the only expectation you have for him that you fail to live up to yourself. In fact, I bet there are chores that you expect him to do that you won't do, even though there are no chores that you will do that he won't. I bet I know who shovels the snow, who mows the lawn, and it's not you. But putting your bragging aside, your attitude itself is also very wrong. And I'm not saying that you should be the only one always exclusively doing all the things on your list. Okay? Every marriage is different. My wife exclusively or nearly exclusively does some of those things. Some of them we both do. My wife does almost all the laundry. She handles breakfast and lunch for the kids pretty much exclusively, at least Monday through Friday. She makes dinner more than 50% of the time, but I do make dinner fairly often. She books most of the appointments. I generally pack my own suitcase when I travel. My wife does a vastly disproportionate amount of domestic labor in general. I earn pretty much all the money to keep our family fed and sheltered. That's how it works in our family, and it works very well for us. Not every family will work exactly that way. That's fine, but here's the point. Scorekeeping is death to a marriage. If you are only willing to do things that your spouse also does in equal measure, you are keeping score. There is apparently a running tally in your head. I'm guessing that the phrase "your turn" comes up quite a lot in Paige's household. It's your turn to do the dishes. It's your turn to vacuum the rug. It's your turn to, do the kids' laundry. She's keeping track and making sure that her efforts never exceed 50%. I can tell you, my marriage, your turn, we never say, well, it's your turn to do this. It's your turn. What kind of child are you? It's a childish mentality. It never comes up. And it comes up with our kids. Our kids do that with each other all the time. No, it's your turn to do this. That's how children operate. And who decides what the score is? Who actually keeps track of these things? Well, I think we can assume that that's one job Paige is happy to solely take charge of. Now, marriages can barely function this way and certainly cannot thrive this way. You're treating your husband like a business partner. At best, he's a roommate. In fact, there really is no difference at all in the living arrangement you have with your husband and the one you would have with him if he was just a roommate. And that should tell you something. You shouldn't just be willing to do things for him that he does in equal measure in return. You should delight in the opportunity to care for him in unique and different kinds of ways. Your attitude should be the reverse of what it is right now. You should be proud of the things you do for your husband that he does not do in the same way for you. You should be proud of the special and unique ways that you are able to serve your husband. Just like he should be proud in the reverse. The fact that in my family, I earn the money in our family and support and provide for the family pretty much exclusively, that's not a source of resentment for me. I don't sit around and say, well, when are you going to chip in some? I don't want to have to do all this. I like to give something that I don't receive in return. I take pride in that. It's a burden that I shoulder alone, and I would rather shoulder it alone than go 50-50 on it. My wife, for her part, does many things that I don't do, certainly not in the same way or in the same amount. She also then gives things that she does not receive back in equal measure. So we're both giving to the family in different ways. How do we keep score then? How do we tally everything up? How do we determine who is doing more? We don't. There's no scorecard. It's not possible to keep a scorecard anyway. We would need like 1,000 different scorecards for every aspect of our lives, and then we would need to tally up all the scores and come up with some kind of master scorecard that gives the ultimate score based on all the individual scores. And if we did all that, who would we discover in the end is doing more? I don't know. I can only hope that I'm doing everything I can for my family and giving all of myself. I know that my wife is. Now, to you, the idea of doing more and giving more is oppressive. It fills you with bitterness and envy. And that's because you love your feminist principles more than you love your family. It's because you want a coworker, not a husband. And if you don't change that attitude and change it soon, you're not going to have a husband for very long, because these kinds of arrangements don't work. And that is why our friend Paige and everyone who shares her attitude is today canceled. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
Joe Biden agrees to debate President Trump. The left attacks NFL kicker Harrison Butker for giving the greatest college commencement speech of my lifetime. And the new stars of the Planet of the Apes movie say that they side with apes over humans. Could you believe it? Check it out on The Michael Knowles Show.